a really vivid memory for me of my time at MCAD was this, it may have been the first day of this class or the second day, but it was a typography class. And a teacher gave out this assignment to design like a lecture announcement postcard for a talk. And it had to be entirely handmade, and it had to be done by 5 p.m. and then we'd have a critique from like 5 to 6 or something. So that means it was kicked off at 1 p.m. and certainly we're working on it by 1:30. Jeez, it's so loud. It's rush hour, Washington Avenue. You know what? Let's cut down this way, see if this makes it slightly better. So we jump right into this thing, and it's very kind of physical. It's like, it's handmade. So I don't remember if we had type specimen books or where I was getting type from. But I was familiar with the designer that it was for, so I immediately had some a baseline to start with, and I'd spent a lot of time, well, one, being like a hardcore kid, I spent a lot of time with photocopiers, and then two, the semester before, I spent a lot of time experimenting with photocopiers with multiple layers and tracing paper, and basically like using the photocopier as like a kind of, I don't know, I'm not sure if a creative tool is the right word, but it was something like that. So I loved this thing. It was physical, it was intense, there were no revisions, and it was probably, I don't know about the work, but I can still remember what the postcard looks like, so that says something. But it was definitely one of the highlights of school. Of a cut and paste photocopied postcard that was done in 3 hours, let's say. I never really grasped the significance of that, except that this early moment is the highlight for me, and everything else was largely a drag. Now it's really crystal clear. Like, I like to work rather intensely. I don't prefer to experiment on a real project. I prefer to do my experimentation earlier and then apply it to the next thing. I don't like doing revisions. I like fixing mistakes, but I don't like doing revisions. As far as I'm concerned, the thing's done. Cool, let's move on. So it's just this sort of funny thing to think about, because it's like, the highlight of my design education is a project that I was probably never supposed to think about ever again. Like, the point of that project was just to get us doing work. It wasn't about, I mean, it was about typography, but it was mostly about speed, synthesis, and alternative ways of working. But it was never intended to be the kind of thing you look back on and you're like, oh yeah, the best thing I did was a fucking photocopied cut and paste thing in 3 hours. But now I get it. It totally makes sense to me that that would have been the thing I would have honed in on, because it has all the recipes and all the hallmarks of what works for me. Speed, simplicity, simple dumb tools, not overthinking shit, not doing revisions. Like, we critique this stuff, but sorry, hold on. God almighty. There we go. We critiqued this stuff, but we were never coming back to it. It wasn't like it was due or anything. It was like, it was done. So Why am I thinking about this? I'm thinking about this because of this ongoing thing that I'm obsessed with, which is you look at the things that have worked, that really worked, that like maybe the end result you weren't thrilled with, but you look back on it happily and positively, and you try to break down what you did and what the context was that made it so great, and that you can probably replicate that and do it again and again. And that's the thing that's supposed to be your process. It's not one size fits all. You know, how weird is it to, like, let's think about years. This would have been, if I had to guess, 2001. Possibly 2000, early 2002, but I want to say it was around the time of 9/11. Simple one afternoon exercise to get a bunch of students kind of warmed up and moving, and yet here it is 16 years later. That's one of the major highlights of my educational career. I think that speaks volumes about what happens when you do the right shit, you do the right steps for the way that you're wired, for, you know, your firmware. So, some shit to think about. Reflect on those times that the work worked. All right, thanks a lot for watching.